It's not one of my videos if I'm not wearing the hat, you know. So a lot of people were watching my video and they're like, okay, there's no way this is gonna work. Because to be fair, in my last video, I was very vague and I didn't bring up a lot of actual legal points. However, I am planning on pursuing this lawsuit. A lot of people were talking about, hey, you can't just say most of the people are minors. That'll just get instantly shut down in court. Which, to be fair, that is something that I wasn't really clear on. However, it's actually very important that I discuss the ramifications of the incoming lawsuit. This video is going to use a lot of syntax and verbiage from my written document, which I already made a video about, and I'm going to have that linked in the description and the pinned comment so you can read it for yourself. Otherwise, I'm coming. So for about the past 17 years, Roblox users have purchased avatar face items to wear on their avatars. However, Roblox later removed these items and replaced them with lexically and materially different items. These do not match the original items whatsoever, and especially not with one-to-one parity, as they stated. These changes affected all users who own these items, which is likely majority of the platform, especially majority of the platform who at least purchased items. No refunds or equivalent compensation were provided for these items. My document shows a bunch of examples of faces. Like, if you look at these, like, you can't tell me these are equivalent whatsoever. So the case of it being simply it's the same item, it's just put into a different format. These changes were applied uniformly across the platform. Every single user who owned a face had their face replaced by one of these dynamic heads. And again, these faces not only just don't resemble their original look, they also are literally lexically different in the game. For example, you can see here I purchased this face on this day, September 24th, 2024, right? And you can see I bought that daring face specifically. However, if you look at the ID of the daring face, this is the ID of the face that I purchased, that I literally have an actual Roblox verified purchase. However, that link doesn't exist anymore. When you go to that link, you're redirected to this one with this link, and it's a bundle, and it's the new face thing. It's not what I purchased. And if you look at the ID, it's definitely not the ID of the thing I purchased. The creation date for the item is also 2026, which means they would have to argue that I purchased the item before it was created. Now let's get into the meat and potatoes of it, right? My main case that I'm going to use for this is Doe v. Roblox, because this is a landmark for this. And this is the whole reason why I'm filing this in the first place. This is like my saving grace. A lot of people use arguments that oh, you can't win. This is unwinnable because of this precedent or because of these laws. But this is the whole reason why I'm even able to do this in the first place. This is the whole reason why I feel like this is winnable. Roblox may argue that the item is indeed just an alteration. It's not a different item. But California law, as quoted in Doe v. Roblox, states, a cause of action based in fraud may arise from conduct that is designed to mislead, and not only from verbal or written statements. In short, that means even if Roblox calls it an alteration, it's not up to Roblox to decide what it is. The issue lies in the fact that Roblox misled people. They misled people into purchasing a specific item thinking that they were bound to that specific item, much like what was argued in Doe. In Doe, the plaintiff argued that she believed she owned the item and that the item she purchased would remain in her inventory as usable on the platform. She stated that users generally expect to effectively own the items they purchase for as long as they continue to use the service. And guess what? The court found that these expectations were plausibly induced by Roblox's conduct, meaning it was plausible for pretty much everyone to believe these things. It's not something that Roblox can just be like, oh no, they're not expected. No. They expected that. Therefore, the claims could not be dismissed on that precedent alone. So the whole basis of, oh, well, they don't actually own the items and blah, blah, blah. This literally sets a precedent of people expect to own the items. It's not about blah, blah, blah. It is pretty much misleading and scamming if someone wants to get something and you're like, oh, well, we could just take it away whenever we want. There's more nuance to that. The law isn't just some apathetic, people don't have rights for this if a corporation says so. So by extension, we can argue that users didn't buy a modifiable concept of a face that they bought. They bought the exact face that they looked at and purchased. And funnily enough, like in Doe, people would buy the specific clothes that they wanted to buy and then it would get taken from them. But you can't really edit clothes after they're uploaded. You can edit the information, but you can't edit the actual clothing itself. which is funny because that's exactly what Roblox did. They literally edited what people bought. So this is an even worse precedent than what was in Doe. Here's a quote from Doe. Roblox's conduct would plausibly induce reasonable consumers to believe at least that their purchased virtual items would not be deleted for these alleged purposes. A jury could find that a reasonable consumer, especially a minor, would rely on a course of conduct that, from their perspective, would appear to be a straightforward purchase. Whether a practice is deceptive, fraudulent, or unfair is generally a question of fact, which requires consideration and weighing of evidence from both sides, and which usually cannot be made on a motion to dismiss. So basically, Roblox can't say, oh, no, we can take things as we please, so dismiss this argument. This argument was valid in Doe, so I don't see why it wouldn't be valid here. By this logic, Roblox can't escape this by simply calling it an argument or arguing to dismiss it. It actually has to be decided in court whether or not this is deceptive, which I quote again. Liability would instead attach for Roblox's own failure to disclose that it can delete previously purchased items with no warning. Roblox is essentially functioning as a seller of virtual merchandise, not a publisher of information. Forcing Roblox to disclose that virtual items may be deleted does not boil down to deciding whether to exclude material that third parties seek to post online, nor does it even require Roblox to monitor third-party content, so it falls out of CDA's immunity. Doe has adequately alleged an economic injury. She purchased Robux that she alleges was done without adequate warning, that she would fruitlessly spend them on items that would be unjustly deleted. While Roblox cites cases that have held purchases of in-game currency are not a sufficient economic injury in some circumstances, they did not address the situation based on a failure to disclose claim. Many are premised on the idea that consumers got exactly what they expected, they just did not like the results. But this case isn't like that. It's not that they didn't like the results, it's that they literally got shafted out of what they purchased. Replacing an item with a non-equivalent copy is literally the definition of consumer harm, and that could definitely be argued on my case. In regards to the terms of service, this is the part that everyone thinks it's gonna just fall apart and I have no case, but Roblox may pull the mootness card. What if they update the faces and put them one-to-one exactly as they stated? Then there's no point in having the case, right? They can also pull the arbitration or class action waiver card. No, I can't fight the case. I signed the class action waiver. I signed the arbitration agreement. There's no way. But there are safeguards that literally help Doe argue this case and win. Keep in mind, every single person on the Roblox platform got their money back from the clothes and hats and all the stuff that were deleted. I am not a minor, and yet every time one of my items gets deleted, I get refunded for it. Because the thing is, this represents the class. It is a class action lawsuit. If most of the class is affected by this and most of the class is not bound to the arbitration agreement, then it is safe to say that this class action lawsuit can't just be invalidated by this fine print. If every single person was bound to this waiver or was bound to the arbitration agreement, there would be zero cases against Roblox. Roblox wouldn't lose any lawsuits. They wouldn't get sued at all because they could just pull arbitration, can't sue me. Class action waiver, can't sue me. And yet they still get successfully sued all the time. But apparently because I'm doing it because of this, right? It's not gonna work. It's not that simple. Quotes from Doe. I cannot say that the information that Roblox could or would make these deletions is so obviously unimportant that the jury could not reasonably find that a reasonable consumer would have been influenced by it. So Roblox can't be like, that's not important, that's The Ninth Circuit once explained in a consumer protection case, reasonable consumers should not necessarily be expected to look beyond misleading representations on the front of the box to discover the truth from an ingredient list and a small print on the side of the box. Basically, Roblox can't just be like, oh, well, there's consumer protection laws like this for a reason. If you want to pull something out your ass that's like 2 words, that's not gonna just be sufficient alone. There has to be like a tangible, understandable argument, and Roblox is pulling the same arbitration and class action waiver card. But their whole argument fell apart in Doe when they did that. This is not sufficient. They can only win on this premise. This also trumps Roblox argument of being able to arbitrarily delete products consumers purchased. Even if Roblox claims it can modify items despite clear evidence that the items that were originally purchased are voided, users were never reasonably put on notice that their purchased items could be transformed into completely and fundamentally different assets without compensation. Roblox may argue that the items truly are just an update. However, the replacement assets are again materially different in appearance and lexically different in item designation and creation date. Therefore, the change exceeds a reasonable modification and instead becomes an effective removal and substitution of the purchased product, which any regular consumer would not have expected when they purchased it. This reinforces that the items weren't just modified, it wasn't just a slight change, this is like a fundamental difference. Roblox, in blunt terms, replaced people's stuff with something that they did not consent to having it replaced with prior. Therefore, under Doe, liability is not based on simply whether or not Roblox considers it a change, but it's based on whether or not users were misled into purchasing items that would not persist in their purchased form, which is exactly what Doe argued. Now, this is the big thing that people are saying I don't have a case with. I'm not a minor. I agreed to Roblox's provisions. I agreed to their class action waiver, and that suddenly doesn't just disallow the case from further evaluation. Keep in mind, this is on a class-wide basis, the entire class being the entire Roblox platform, or at least people who have purchased faces, the vast majority of them being minors. As recognized in Doe, majority of Roblox's user base consists of minors, and therefore the enforceability of these provisions is a case-by-case thing. It's not all-encompassing. Quotes from Doe. At least 70% of Roblox users are minors. More than half are under the age of 13. Roblox is alleged to be aware of the age of its users because it requires them to input their birthday when signing up. Despite this, Roblox does not include any sort of age-related protections that some other websites use, such as requiring parental permission. And that's a big catch, because people talk about, oh, well, if you sign up for Roblox, you have to get a parent, but Roblox doesn't really enforce that. This case literally said that, like, there's nothing that really stops a kid from just, like, going on Roblox and just signing up for the site. You could be a 5-year-old and sign up for Roblox. And there's no, like, ask your parent to join today. Like, you go to the Roblox website and you're just, like, greeted by that. And you're like, wow, yay, I could join. And there's nothing stopping me. So it is unreasonable to assume that a majority of the player base can really actually be bound to this, and it's stated in this case too. Roblox was aware that Doe was a minor. In light of that fact, it is unreasonable to conclude that she manifested objective assent to be bound to the arbitration agreement and class action waiver. This sentence carries my case. Carries. We're not talking about some, oh, you're bound by it because you need parental permission. You're bound by it, oh, everyone is bound to. This is the whole reason why Doe won. This is the whole reason why when Roblox gets sued, people win a lot of the time. This case is not unwinnable. I might not be able to be the main plaintiff. I might not be the person standing in the stands. I might not be the person that is telling the judge what's going on, but I don't need to be. This is a class action lawsuit. I am simply one in millions, hundreds of millions in the class. Most of that class is people who don't know what they're doing. This class is deliberately being misled and scammed, and they are protected by law as children who cannot consent to this behavior. And I know what you're thinking. All this for Roblox faces? You think this is about faces? This is about companies taking stuff from you that you rightfully purchased. This is a shitty thing to do. When you buy something, you should own it. And giving the company the ability to do this, letting them do this with no repercussions, you know what precedent that sets? That tells you that you can buy stuff and you will own nothing. So do you want to own nothing? Do you want to suck up to the company? Do you want to be pessimistic? Do you want to think everything is bad and everything is evil and you're never going to win anything? You might never win because you never try. But I'm trying. And unlike you stupid f***s in the comment section who keep saying that it's unwinnable, that I'm wasting my time, that I'm doing too much for faces, you know what? Fuck you. Because I'm trying. I'm trying to fix this. And I'm trying to fix not even just Roblox. I'm trying to fix the internet. I'm trying to fix anything where we spend money and we get shit on by these overlords. But I'm sick of it. So I'm going to do something. And I don't give a f*** what I need to do or for how long I need to do it. I'm going to do it. And to Roblox,